wood shop. Thank God for wood. I could send her on the lathe and I could make the furnace shine. The teacher couldn't make as good a lamp face as mine. My parents came on Parents' Day. They saw my stuff and said, he ain't no Einstein, no, but he's good. Wood shop. Thank God for wood.
On that note, I'm going to cut you off because it's 10 o'clock. And this is Lancaster Woodturners Coffee Hour number 78, November 18th, 2021. And we're here at the Kaufman Kitchen space in New Holland, PA. There's 5 guys, 6 of us in the room. And I see 12, 15 on screen. And probably another half dozen will chime in before too long. In Lancaster announcements, there is no coffee hour next Thursday, Thanksgiving. We're going to take the week off. We'll be back the following Thursday, which is December. Let's see, we're taking off the 26th. We'll be back on the 2nd. And then we have a club meeting on the 7th. A Lancaster club meeting here in the room. The entertainment for the evening is going to be Keith Louderback showing us how he makes Christmas ornaments, and we do have a video of Keith's ornaments as well that we can show if we need to, but I think we might not. We're also going to have club elections for 2 positions that come up right now, and that's mine, treasurer, and the other is vice president, Ben. We are both standing for re-election, but we would be happy to step aside if somebody wants the job. All you got to do is let Barry know, because Barry's the nominating committee, and he's right here in the room as well. Any more club news we want to mention? Oh yeah, it's dues season. We're collecting dues. If you decide to pay your dues by PayPal, which you can do to my email, make it a payment to a friend as opposed to a business. If you do it to a business, they take a couple bucks. If you do it to a friend, they don't take anything. So that's the PayPal routine. You can also mail a check to my street address, which is on the club roster. We're in a very interesting situation right now. We're having a lot of inquiries from people. We've had a number of people join us we never heard of before. We don't know where the hell they're coming from or asking them. I think they're seeing our videos, and some of them are lucking up, getting into coffee. I mean, I don't even know who all you guys are. There's a guy over here called Sandy. Who's Sandy? What's your actual name? Are you actually called Sandy?
Yes, it's Jeff Mullen.
It's Jeff Mullen. There you go. You see?
He refuses to sign in under his own name.
Yeah, see how it goes. So you know, we try and keep up on that and ask people who find our videos and like them to drop us a note, and some of them do and some of them don't. It's how it goes. I've got some slides I want to show this morning. I know that Ernie has something interesting. There's a bit of show and tell in the room. And how about you guys on screen? Who's got anything they want to share with us today? Holman, Snelson, Randy. Is that are you clapping there, Randy, or are you putting your hand up to show stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. So I got Randy, Garrick, Snelson, Bowman. Okay, we got a pretty good group here. And just because last week I buggered it up so badly, I'm going to try and lead off with my own slideshow, if I may. You got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
This is the cover of Stephen Hogbin's book, Hogbin on Woodturning, which I edited 10 years or so ago. I've known Hogbin for many years, as I'll explain in a minute. I've been involved in an awful lot of book edits in my long career, including I did the photography for Ellsworth's book. I did the design and layout for Malcolm Tibet's book on segmenting. And I've worked on, I don't know, Barry Gross's books. I've worked on an awful lot of books, and a lot of them are turning books. The majority are not, but a lot are. But of them all, this particular book, Hogbin on Woodturning, is the best book I ever worked on, and the most interesting and the most startling in a lot of ways. It's still available from Fox Chapel for, I think, $24 or $25. This is the cover, and that is the man over there in the corner. I met Hogbin back in the 70s. He lived in Toronto at the time. He now lives in Owen Sound. There was a meeting of the World Craft Council in Toronto, and this is the poster and the card that Hogbin's gallery made and saturated the conference with. I was living in Cleveland at the time, and a lady of my acquaintance came back from that conference and brought me this card and a magazine article about Wendell Castle, and it was like, oh, I get it. And I quit my job and moved to Rochester and went to school to study woodworking and furniture design for a couple of years. But on the way, I took this card and I went to Toronto to find this guy because this work blew me away. I couldn't understand how the hell he'd done it or what was going on. And I found a skinny kid about my own age in a rented loft space in the industrial district of Toronto, trying to figure out how to cope with his wife and his babies and make this kind of stuff. And we've been friends ever since. Most of these are split turnings. The chair up at the top left is a full-size chair. It comes with another chair and a table that were made on this lathe. We're back in the 1970s still. I brought this up because Duxbury a couple of weeks ago showed a piece that was made in the vein of some of Stephen's work. Anyway, this was the truck axle lathe that was used to make these discs. There's half the disc sitting on the floor and the other half on the faceplate. When this thing was going around at about 100 RPM, it was a sight to see, let me tell you. It was a behemoth. Constant terror of it coming off and rolling across the shop and out through the wall. And it got made into 2 chairs and a table. And you see how he did that? He turned one side of the disc, left the other side flat. It was a stack laminate. It was stack laminated right on the lathe. And then the disc was sawn in half and the flat sides glued together to make and then the chairs and the table hacked out of it and ground and sanded. So here's a page from Hogbin's sketchbook that shows you the kind of things he was doing at the time.
Wait a minute. Does he have a 6-foot bandsaw or something?
I don't remember.
Holy smokes! How do you?
There was no 6-foot bandsaw involved.
Well, you say just cut it in half. My God, you know that.
Well, it was handsaw actually. It was cut in half with a handsaw. I have a picture someplace, not here, of the handsaw halfway into the work. The lathe was used as an armature, and the desk was cut in half by the old way, pushing the saw.
Well, people think that's great to turn that stuff. You know, the thing must weigh 400 pounds. And then you just cut it in half or cut it in 3 pieces. That sounds real easy.
It's not. And the other thing about it is you think, oh, it's going to be quick to turn. It's not.
Yeah.
There's an enormous volume of wood to be pulled out of that piece. So anyway, here's some sketchbook stuff, and then I'm going to show you the work that led to. This is a very early piece, and your piece, Duxbury, the other week reminded me of this. You can see how this was turned as a bowl with a lump in the middle and then sawed in half and joined at the rim. One of the things that Hogbin learned at the time, and I learned too, is if you don't want to see that glue line, you have to make a little extended flange there and then sand it off. If you try and make that a level joint in the first place, you're going to get a valley and you're going to get a glue drool. And that's just the nature of the way this works. This one happens to have been joined end grain to end grain, which didn't make a lot of sense, but or I think it, I'm not even sure. But anyway, this one, Duxbury, is a lot like what you made. Again, this was turned on both sides and then sawn in half across a diameter and glued rim to rim. As this one was, I think this one was in the sketchbook drawing someplace. I think it was pretty clever to get this to show up in the turning.
John, have these all been flattened on the bottom so they will stand up?
I don't know. I've never seen these in the flesh, or I saw them in the flesh 50 years ago. I don't know what they are. I don't know anymore. There's a sketch for that one. Or a bunch of sketches for that one. One of the things that Hogbin's sketchbook shows you, you don't have to be very good to do useful sketches of these things. It's really an exercise in thinking them through. Here's another one, cut into 4.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that ingenious? It just blows me away.
Wow.
Here's a piece again. This was turned basically as a vaught with lumps on one end and an open end, and then sawn and rejoined at the rim. And because of the grain orientation here, I think it's actually a long grain glue up, so it's pretty sturdy, although there's probably some little pin dowels in there. And it's a big fruit bowl with handles. It's really a terrific piece. This is the piece that blew me right out of the water when I saw it, and also Mark Spheri has a special spot. Spheri has always said that Hogbin was 30 years ahead of his time in 1975, and he's still 30 years ahead of his time. I thought this was a beautiful piece made of, I think, lace wood. as an egg cup. But it really, you can see it was started life as a square turning, a flat turning, flat on one side, turned and cunningly sawn into 4 pieces and re-glued.
Wow.
And again, I want to remind you, this is all this work was done in the early and mid 70s. I got way ahead of myself. Yeah. This is another fruit bowl. In this case, it was turned basically as a deep vase, and then a wedge taken out of it before gluing it back together. You can see that the full shape is revealed on the upper left, and on the lower right, there's only a little bit of it left because of the wedge section that was taken out. People look at this and have no idea how it was made, and it really is a mental exercise to figure out. There's another one. This is left square, basically square on one side. Now, this doesn't make a useful bowl unless you're putting things like Easter eggs or Christmas ornaments in it, because you certainly don't want guacamole down inside those ridges. But it is a very beautiful thing.
Did he have a big disc sander? How'd he flatten those things?
I don't know. Yeah, I think so. I think he did have a big disc sander. I think I remember an enormous disc sander.
He needed gems.
Only
Yeah.
made with a truck axle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that might be the end of that slideshow. So I'm going to stop the share. And I have more slides of some other work, but I might show those another time. So how did you like that?
Cool.
It was good.
Very cool.
Very good. Yeah. Enjoyed it.
Amazing.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks.
And I can show you some other work that will blow you away too, but I think I'm not going to screw around trying to find where they are. I'll get them up on the desk maybe later in the meeting or another time. Boom. Since we're doing entertainments here, Ernie, you got something you want to show as well, don't you?
Yes, I've had a couple of interesting jobs come through the shop here in the last 2-3 weeks. And so I'm going to share a screen and show you. I built a little PowerPoint show on them. There it is. And the first one, it was 3 different parts in varying numbers for a screen. In former times, they used screens in houses a lot that were just folding in a zigzag pattern, much like a trade show backdrop today. But this one was Victorian, mid-Victorian. It's about 140 years old. And so probably Civil War vintage. But at any rate, it was some fairly challenging turning because there was an up and down to all these turnings, and they had little square, very carefully ground scrapers to scrape out some of these lines in them. And so I basically employed every measuring tool in my arsenal as I turned them. The original wood seems to be some kind of a very hard pine, like a southern pine. And I picked cherry. I had a big piece of plank of cherry that I cut all of them out. And they all start life as a 1-inch square. And I would cut pieces off and then put one end in a chuck and the other supported with a tailstock. And then I would cut them from the chuck as I did each one. So there was about 1 inch of waste on each one. The ones I did the middle ones first because there was the most of those. And interesting enough, the skill of the turner shows up too, that this is a pretty nice bead right here, but this one is what I call a lumpy bead, where He didn't roll his chisel to the right quite the same. So I put the same defect in all of them, which kind of niggled me.
You're pretending you didn't just that defect didn't just occur, huh?
No.
But it does to me every time. I can't have a bead that's symmetrical on top of money.
And so this is the tools I use and all the measuring equipment. And to get this kind of stuff to look alike, I would put a set of dividers down this set right here for the, say that this was the last one I did. So that's the total length of it. And then this set goes from the bottom here to the sort of center of the edge of the spool bead in the middle. And then a little tiny pair right here set the sizes of the beads at each edge. And then calipers worked through for the diameters I needed thereafter.
So wait a minute, you're using those dividers to find lengths along the spindle, is that right?
Exactly. And that makes one exactly like the other.
That never occurred to me that you could do that. And then, you know, duh.
Yeah, and I have little tiny pairs of dividers. I'll show them later, but this is, I'm holding them up if you look at my screen, but they're little tiny things. And Starrett, when I take them to a show and show them to Starrett guys in a Starrett booth, they're amazed. They've never seen them like that before. There's more of a close-up. And this was the wrench, which all the ends of them were that size, which I think I found was 8 millimeters. So it might have been made in Europe. But you can see the tools I used. And these are a parting tool that was made by Beach Street Tool Works back in the days. And it uses a normal metalworking cutoff tool. So I was able to make those little grooves without grinding a special scraper. There it is in the lathe, the finished one. But this is one that often you get something like this and I had forgotten to put the grooves on it. Or there was 3 that I did this wrong and I had to change it. So by just taking a skew chisel, putting a block of wood in the chuck, putting the tip of the skew in the center and cutting a little tapered pocket, I then registered the end in, caught it with the center and put the grooves in. So don't give up if you make a mistake or forget to do something. You usually can chuck it up again.
So that piece on the left is a mandrel, basically.
Yeah. It's just a sacrificial chuck, basically. And this is the other job I got in that actually was for my son's mother-in-law and father-in-law, and she is Croatian, and she makes pastries at Christmas and Easter time that are layer after layer of very thin pie crust. We call it phyllo. And she wanted me to make these for her. She had this one, and this is a 48-inch maple rod that goes from the center at 1 inch down to 3/4 at each end. And it has to be a straight line. It can't be either a convex or concave curve. So I set them up in the Powermatic and grabbed them in the center with a steady rest. And then I took the 2 pairs of calipers right here and sized a groove there and there at 7/8 and 3/4. And then I basically used a roughing out gouge to bring it to the taper, and a small, mostly this roughing out gouge and a small spindle gouge to clean up the end. And I didn't bother with a skew. This was a job to crank out the door. I took a 6-inch Festool sander with 120 grit paper and just sanded the bejesus out of them to get them straight and nice.
So So Ernie, why did you use the gouge instead of the skew just to do the whole thing?
Well, if you got to run a skew down that length, it's pretty slow. And you can get about as nice a finish with a big roughing out gouge that's really sharp like that, and it'll never tear in cross grain. And then you just put a big, disc sander on it, a Festool 6-inch with vacuum attached to it, so you don't get any dust in the air, and it just made them nice.
Good, thank you.
That's it.
Well, on Ernie, on your first project, you mentioned that this was for a folding screen. I'm trying to envision what those small pieces were for. Were they for the hinge points?
They must go in sort of the hinge points between the panels. I don't know. The man that has it is a professor of architecture at Kent State University, and he and his wife own a historic home in Troy, New York, which actually has a row of houses. I've been there, called Italianate Row. This is one of those houses, and they live here in Kent, but they spend their spare time in Troy, and so this is for a piece for that house.
And your share, please, Ernie.
Yeah,
Oh.
kill your share.
Yeah. So
Yeah, thank
sorry
you.
about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And
Question,
here's the
Ernie?
little tiny calipers, and as opposed to a normal size pair.
Just lost you. Just a
That's
second.
all right. That's all we need on that.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Ernie. We got some show and tell in the room, but let's do the screen first and then come to the roof. Bowman, what do you got?
Well, I haven't polished shoes since I've been a kid, I believe. Maybe when I was dating, I don't know. I buff them now. But I decided to get some black shoe polish to make some ebony. And here's my adventure. This is covered with lacquer. I completely use Kiwi black liquid shoe polish. This is sassafras, which has grain, which helps show it. Now the question will be, there's two things I learned. One is I don't know for years whether it'll fade. I have no way of knowing whether shoe polish will stay or not. The second one is when you put this on, if you haven't raised the grain first, you can't sand it because it sands away the black. And if you do, then you got to recoat it. And so I learned that you got to really water treat it first. Now, that was just for fun, but I want to share my screen because I have a presentation about a bowl. All right. How many of you know about kintsugi? It's you probably know about it. It's I think it's applicable here. I'm really disappointed that we call our mistakes funnels. The Japanese, when they break a bowl, they put it back together with gold dust in lacquer. So I just am trying to get away from funnel as being a downright because I kind of like fixing up that stuff. So that's that. Now, one other thing I want to say, one of the things that you guys turn such beautiful stuff, I approach the photography of the turnings as an art form. I happen to be, one of my art specialties is macro photography. This happens to be the real close-up edge of the cherry bowl, which you're about to see, that has been filled with epoxy. This happened to be 5 minute because by nature, I'm an impatient guy with epoxies. But this, and it also shows the light coming through the thin wall. So that is this bowl from an art standpoint. And again, when you photograph it, if you photograph it artistically, and one of the big things I say to woodturners is do not use any other background than white. Now you could argue with me, but I think you have to agree that this shows up well as white. And I have a bright spot in the corner to indicate we got light coming in there. I'll run through these quickly. Now, this was one of my, here was the original bowl when I cut through the bottom. And I had it sitting around a week and I said, that's just too massive a piece of walnut in bottom. So I stuck her back on the lathe, cut out that. And one of the things I learned about wood, I picked a really colorful, well-designed, do you say organic design on the little maple wedge I was going to put in there. But in the process of turning it smooth and rounding it nicely, I turned it away. I guess those layers of spalting are quite thin. Learned a lesson there. So I think that looks a lot better with that insert in it. Here's the bottom for those of you who haven't seen this. I posted this on my Facebook page a while ago. Well, that was
the clunky part is the bottom. That's where it looked great until you turned it over.
No, John. When you sit it right side up, then it floats. It makes the bowl float, and you don't see that bottom. Yeah, if you turn it over, but bowls are not made to be turned over. They're made to sit. Okay. I always, my wife's a potter, and so she and I have this big argument. She hates when a crack happens in the bottom, which is a common issue when she fires stuff, and she throws them away. And I said, doggone it. It's sitting down and you have a beautiful bowl. So for me, I intentionally made that thick because I wanted it to float the bowl. So, well, that was my little spiel for this morning. So,
Jim, on that bowl where you had the filling of the polyurethane, is a little bit of a dip on the lip. Did you carve that in, or was it sanded in because of the different hardness?
There's a story to that bowl. The bowl was going to have lacing in it. I was going to lace it, with leather.
Yeah.
But so I had a little imperfection there. So I put a little dip in saying, well, it'll be like a shoe top when I lace it. Well, guess what? I didn't lace it because I took a different direction. So it's there. I think I took it over in my vertical sander and just touched it to get the round stuff. So.
Cool.
More questions?
One last thing. Okay. Yeah, I'm in the middle of epoxying right now. Boy, waiting 3 days drives me crazy. But I have probably next week I'll have some epoxy pieces. I just took them out of the mold this morning. So.
Well, we look forward to seeing them.
Yeah.
And a pepper grinder, I might add.
We'll see when I get to that. We have other pepper grinders in the house, but I do have it planned. But Ernie, thank you very much. You were very helpful.
Thank you, Jim. Nice little show. Garold, what do you got? I think you're muted, buddy.
Hold this up.
Yeah.
Okay. A fluted bowl. This started out as an experiment. Piece of 8/4 poplar. Wasn't really a good-looking piece of wood, and I just was trying to learn how to do the flutes. These flutes are turned in; they're not carved, and so it wasn't a great piece of wood to begin with, but I did learn the technique.
Very clever. You want to tell us the technique? Tell us the trick?
Well, I know one of the club members is going to do a demo here in several weeks, and I don't know how he does his. The way I did it was 2 pieces of 8/4 poplar sandwiched with a piece of 1-inch waste material, and turned both bowls at the same time, turned the outside to get the contour, then mounted it this way.
Yes.
And rotated it like so.
So all your turning centers are in that waste piece, is that right?
In the waste piece, and then as you finish up, you eliminate the waste piece, and this is the end result.
That's the clue I was missing from having seen this stuff before, that I've been trying to figure out how you're going to get rid of all those turning centers. Because how many, you got 6 axes there? 6 or 7?
No, there are more than that.
Yeah,
I think
a lot of axes.
16, well, 8 turning.
So 8 axes. So that's what always mystified me about that technique. But now you're the first guy who's actually made it clear that the waist piece is where the centers are, so you don't have to worry about them.
That's my technique. Somebody else may have another one.
Got
That's
it.
the way I did that too. That's Ron Sheehan. You know, I've done it a couple different ways, but that's exactly what I did.
But you guys was really like wood flying at you on the lathe. Boy, that would scare the bejeebies out of me.
No problem at all. No issues whatsoever. I'm turning between centers through the waist piece and
Totally
use
safe.
the center and it's fine.
I had a little different experience. One of my glue joints came apart and come out and smacked my screen that I have pulled down over the front. So yeah, it is a possibility. As you're turning away some of your glue joint in that groove area. So your glue joint is becoming less and less as you go along. You gotta be careful.
So those screens actually have a purpose on the Powermatics?
Yeah, they do.
Well, when I turned away the waist, all I did was use a parting tool and parted it in the center of the waist, and then held it because the bottom has a recess, so I held it in the bottom and turned away the waist, just parted it, and then still held the one side and faced the bowl off, and then turned the inside out.
So you glued it together before you turned the inside, is what you're saying? You did the fluting.
I separated it before I turned. The inside was the last part.
Okay.
What speed did you turn that at?
Oh, I seldom turn over 1,000.
Oh, okay, because I keep hearing this conversation with guys, oh, the faster you go, the better it cuts. Well, my lathe is 2 pulleys and the bottom one goes up to 1,200. So I never bothered changing above that. But 3,000 would seem like an awful fast spin. Okay, that's good to know.
The faster you go with something like that, the more dangerous the projectile when it comes off. The more momentum it's got.
That's exactly it.
It's also worth noting that every material has an optimum cutting speed. And there is a sort of a trend lately to turn at incredibly fast speeds, which are 1, counterproductive, and 2, just outright dangerous. And there's a lot of evidence to show that faceplate turning doesn't improve 1 iota at any speed over about 12, maybe 1,400 RPMs. And yes, it's very small in diameter.
Thank you, Ernie, because that really relays, makes me think, okay, I'm doing all right. What, do you have a chart of that? That's fascinating that certain woods you turn at certain speed.
I would say it's a matter of feel.
Yeah, and I think the hardness of the wood, the physical hardness, not whether it's hardwood or softwood, like it's going to be harder to turn some really hard wood like grows in South America than it is.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is if there's hard soft in the wood, the tool starts to bounce, and at some speed that bounce becomes a flutter that you can barely detect, but it sure shows up in the result.
John, you know, you made the comment, it's a feel. We say that about chisel sharpness too. Boy, after a while, it's feel on everything.
Yeah, it is.
And you inadvertently mentioned something else, Jim, and that is the sharpness of your tool makes a difference too. You know.
Yep.
You can turn up the speed to a little, it might compensate a bit for dull tools, but sharp tools really don't need very high speed to turn.
Which takes me to a quick question.
You got wet wood or dry wood, you're going to have a difference too.
Yeah. And you guys, speaking of feel, how do you know when your carbides are need to be rotated or exchanged for a new one? Feel again doesn't serve a purpose when you're trying to feel how sharp an edge is.
I think the answer is to go to steel tools.
I second that.
Not
There's
if you're
one more-
turning, not if you're turning epoxy. No way. You're going to be on the grinder every push.
Okay, because what happens with carbide is you use it for so long you don't realize it's getting dull, and the edge is dubbed over, and you're still grinding, hammering away with it, pressing ever harder, and making ever more burn marks. And then by the time you cotton to the fact that it's not sharp, you've already screwed up the workpiece.
Get a jig and don't turn your grinder off. Leave it on.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Right.
But then you have no chisel left.
Well, that's what the chisel market is for. They'll always sell you another. Don't worry. Snelson, what do you got?
I'd like to try to share screen if that's okay.
Go
If
for
it
it.
doesn't work, I'll just show you.
Sound is much improved. Whatever you did, that's good. You're looking good.
Can you see that?
You
Yeah.
got it.
Yep.
Okay, with apologies to Kai, who knows what he's talking about, and I don't. This is an incense burner, also known as a German smoker. And it's a fun turning project. And a little cone of incense sits on the inside, and it makes me nauseous about 20 seconds later, but it really works. Smoke just rolls out of his mouth. And he was fun to do. Garold gave me a piece of wood that looked like a milk bottle, and but it turned out to be maple underneath, and that's what I used. And that's what I want to show.
Hey, where's the?
Gerry,
where's
these are
the-
fantastic. Are you going to bring a couple of them to the meeting on Saturday morning?
Yeah,
How big is that,
Hello.
Gerry?
about a foot. Whoops.
Ah,
And what is the hair?
Good.
There's
Wow.
I use a little bell to hold the,
and your share, Gerry, so I can spotlight still the screen with you.
yes, okay. Where is that?
Pop.
The top?
Stop
Okay,
there.
yeah.
I got you.
all right. There's a little piece of incense that you had to buy a box of 6,000 to get that, and they all stink. I imagine some people like the smell, but it does work.
So where does the
There's
smoke?
lots of
Where does the smoke exit from the dude?
his mouth.
Ah.
See, it's hollow underneath through there, and then it goes up in this bottom piece here. There are two holes where the air can come in, so it can breathe, and then smoke rises, and the only hole at the top is underneath his mustache.
So his mustache is for the purpose of continuing the smell of the incense after you're done burning it, right? Where'd you get the hair? What is the hair?
Oh, that's just fake fur. I'm a puppet maker, so I have lots of that kind of stuff around. I build ventriloquist dummies and puppets and violins and mandolins.
What do you mean you're a puppet maker? You do marionettes as well?
I do marionettes, yes.
You want to not today, but could you put together a slideshow of puppets and marionettes sometime?
Yeah,
We would love
Sure.
that. Yeah,
yeah.
This
yeah,
is Garold. I have seen them and you will be amazed.
we would love to see that. That would be a great show to have. Maybe
Yeah,
That would be great. Yes.
next time we're here.
His work is gorgeous.
You want to take some of my hair and put it onto a puppet, is what you're saying? Yeah.
There's one sitting right here. You want to see him? I can
Sure.
just grab. Okay.
Yep.
Grab him. We'll keep the spotlight on you.
Does he have a website that we go see?
I don't know.
He's on Facebook.
He's on Facebook,
an
okay.
instrument maker.
But mostly for my photography, but here's this is Inspector something or other with a cigar. And right now he has a cardboard tube in him for display purposes, so I can't stick my hand in there. But that he's wearing size 3 clothes, which gives my wife a break. She hates making clothes for puppets. She would rather quilt. So there.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Well, thank you.
Now I see that's part of the big fun of this thing, you know. Some guy comes along and we thought you were making bowls with paint rolled on them in the beautiful way that you've been doing. And there's a whole other dimension we didn't even know about.
See, there's a turning.
Yeah. Very cool.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Gerry. Back to
Yeah,
gallery.
thank you. I like the incense burner. It's very nicely decorated. Yeah.
Oh,
Great.
thank you. Now that means a lot coming from you.
You could also organize that so the smoke came out of his ears, I suppose.
I could make a model of me and have the smoke come out of my ears.
Now there's a challenge. Make a model yourself and then put that on your video. And then, yeah.
Look at.
Oh boy, there is a challenge. Speaking of challenges, there is a committee forming in the club to set out the challenges for next year. And if anybody's interested, get a hold of Barry. And meanwhile, Randy, what do you got, Randy?
Staying with the hair theme, I'm making Romeos for friends of mine for Christmas. I have 3 done, and I have about 5 more to make. And this is just the fake fur that the gentleman was talking about. And it's just a spindle on about a 2-inch piece of wood, about 7.5 inches tall, and a little nose for him. And I have 3 of them done. This is the fake fur. It's just a material on one side, like a knitted material. And then on the other side, it has fur. You can get these at any of the craft stores or Joann Fabrics.
Hey, Randy, have you ever made a pen with hair?
Oh, I haven't. I have seen some.
You know what that reminds me of? It looks like a shaving brush for a giant.
Yeah. Anyway, I have some white fur that I haven't used yet. A couple of these are going to be with white fur. So I have 5 more to make. And I thought of something when I was talking, but I don't remember. Oh, Mike Peace did a YouTube video on making these. So I kind of copied Mike. So
okay.
That's about it.
I'm back to gallery view. We have some things in the room we want to show. Barry, you want to start with your plate?
About 2 years ago at an auction, I bought some.
Okay, hold the plate higher up so we can see the plate. Yeah, thank you.
I bought a bunch of white oak that was wet and already sawed into 1-inch thick planks. And as it dried, it checked and cupped and such. And it was only 1 inch to start with. And so debated what I could make with it and decided to make hailing back to Martha Stewart days with plate chargers. So anyhow, I'm making a set of 12 plate chargers. They start off as only 8/10 of an inch thick. And so it was a matter of avoiding any kind of mounting, and I'm going to be giving a demonstration in February with the Woodturners Club here at Lancaster Woodturners on my approach to making these things. One thing I will say, whether the wood is wet or dry, don't go any wider than about 3 inches on an individual strip. When you get down this thin, it wants to potato chip on you pretty seriously after it's been turned. So this is the first one I turned of a set of 12. And they're going to be presented at the table in just a natural finish like this.
Very cool.
Very nice.
Barry, that would be potato chips on a potato chip if you left it curl. So
Yeah, yeah. And keeping the bottom flat so your whole plate isn't wobbling. Resanding the bottom is the last thing before I put the finish on the foot.
Now, how are you doing that, Barry? You want to give us a quickie on what you're doing to hold that, to mount that in the lathe?
Well, I use the, we call it the wood worm. And I put a block of, it turns out, plywood. My wood worm is about, extends about 1.5 inches beyond the faces of the chuck. And so I put a spacer on there so that the wood worm will only penetrate the wood 1/2 inch. And so I, on what will be the top side, I drill a wood worm hole, in this case 5/16 of an inch, 1/2 inch deep, and then I drill a pair out here at the rim, right here above where the foot will be, also 1/2 inch deep, so I can cut flat across the bottom without danger of going through. And that leaves me with 1/4 inch on the bottom for a foot, and an 1/8 inch when it's all done, 1/8 inch thick. Then I drill a second hole just outside of the rim, or outside of the foot area, to 3/4 of an inch. I'm sorry, to within 1/2 inch of the bottom. And so when it's mounted on the lathe, it's mounted against the face here, and I just turn the bevel on the bottom down to about 1/8 of an inch thick, and then hot glue masking tape and hot glue a sacrificial disc, face it and turn it for mounting in my chuck, flip it over and mount it in the chuck and do the face here. And I just go ahead and turn the bevel until the first hole I drilled is eroded. And then I can turn the centerpiece until the second hole and center hole are eroded. So then I know I'm down to as thin as I can get, and I can finish off the rest of it.
You're drilling those holes as a depth gauge, right?
Actually, I using a drill press, to get the center hole and its component hole, I put a piece of 1/4 inch plywood on the table of the drill press and adjust the stop on the drill press so that it just hovers above the plywood.
What kind of bit are you using?
A regular machinist bit.
So it has a pointed end, so.
Right, I didn't want to have the diameter of the spur of a brad point or a Forstner or something. And I'm only drilling at 5/16 of an inch, so I guess at the end you could put a little black dot at the center of the bottom, so you know when you're seeing you're getting close to the black dot, you stop turning.
Well, I'm thinking that the beveled point of the bit is going to leave a dimple in the wood. That I'm going to just go a hair too far, and then I got a permanent dimple.
No, you turn it down until the dimple is fully gone.
Yeah, that's the trick.
And you know that when it's gone, you're 1/4 inch from going through, if you will. Yeah. And outside the rim, I use 1/2 inch plywood as a spacer to stop my drill bit. Just as a guide, I run when the spindle is pulled all the way down on the drill press, the bit is still 1/2 inch above the table. And so when I drill, I can drill to a stop, and I know I still have 1/2 inch of wood under it. And I can turn this down to that first dimple, and then turn the flat bottom to the second dimple. And I'll be demonstrating it, starting with a blank plate in February.
Very cool. You guys out there in Zoom land, I also want you to notice that Ben's camera work has really picked up. We got a nicely framed view there. And we also have an used HDMI monitor on the table. And that allows the guy who's at the table to see what you guys are seeing without having to turn around and look at the TV. So we continue to modify or slowly improve our setup here a little bit at a time. Whose bowl is that over there? Is that yours, Roy, or is that yours, Lloyd?
It's mine.
Come on up. Stand on the X. There's an X on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah, hold the bowl up to, oh yeah, there now. Now I'm going to spotlight that again, and we'll see what we got. Spotlight for everybody. There you go.
Okay, well, last year, do you remember we went down to the Hans Her house?
Yeah.
You and Art and I and a few other people, they had
Yeah.
some wood boards.
Art?
When I say Art, I meant Roy. They look like twins, his brother. Anyhow, we went to the Hans Her house. They had some trees that blew over, and one of them was an English walnut, and I got this little limb, and we put it in the wood storage in the wood shop there, and they were cleaning things out, and they found this, and they gave it to me and told me it was holly. They were wrong.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it was a working. It just came. I guess you can see the pattern on it. It had just such a lovely pattern on the inside of it. Just a lovely little bowl.
Now you got a chucking recess on the back.
Yes.
You okay with that in the finished piece?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still learning. I'm still now the half that I cut this out of, I'm trying to make another bowl, and already this part has blown out twice on me. I think it's headed for the firewood.
When did you start turning, Lloyd?
January of this year.
Okay, so Lloyd is an enthusiast. He's got something he brings every week.
I have a good teacher.
Yeah, that's Roy. And although I feel properly socially distanced, I am wearing a mask to try and set an example on the advice of Dr. Judy, who's on the screen reminding us about COVID and Delta. These are magnet boxes. These are magnet. One of them I made this week, and one of them I made a while ago. This is the one I made a while ago. This one's called Inside Baseball. This is made of ash. And then there's a ring of pear that shows the annual rings. And then there's some, I don't know what it is, some kind of red, probably cocobolo and some Mexican ebony, and then a champagne cork in the middle. So this represents the cross section of a baseball. And this is a snuff box that will stay closed in your pocket because there are 6 pairs of magnets embedded in the wood, totally invisible, of course, you can't see them. So the box closes, I turn it a little bit, it opens. Or I can pull on it a bit and it opens too, but then my snuff is probably going to go all over the place. So the idea here was to make a box that will stay closed in your purse or pocket or knapsack, and is easy to open and easy to close. So this is a thing I've been working on for a few years. I put it aside and I forgot how I did it. So last week I got back to the lathe and I made this one. I made several more this week. This is a little cherry one. This one you can see, I don't know if you can in the camera view, but you can see the glue lines there and there. The magnets are, the way you do this, and I'm going to demo this later in the spring, is you make a 3-piece blank, top, center piece, bottom, drill to a known depth on both sides of the centerpiece, install the magnets, glue the blank back together into a block, part it down the middle, and then turn the box without turning into the magnets. And when I first was doing these, I probably turned into the magnets, every other time. So half of them I'd have 3 or 4 hours in blank prep, and then I'd turn into the magnets and damn. So I have a whole lot of those, and I finally learned how to do it. I have a method that allows me to make the box, make the parts of it, and not hit the magnets. And that's what I'm going to teach next spring sometime. So that's me on magnet boxes. And
how small are the magnets?
In these cases, I think they're 3/16 by 3/16. Little rare earth magnets on 6 of them around. Yeah.
John, you know why you cut through? Because your chisel wants to find the magnet.
That's possible. More likely I cut through because I'm confused about actually where it is. But you actually have, when you have the blank, you have enough information to know where those magnets are if you approach it correctly. You approach it in the wrong order, you're going to turn into it every time. Or at least I do. Maybe some guys are smarter about it than I am.
They would make great mint boxes instead of snuff.
Yeah.
Breath mints.
Breath mint, cocaine, pill, whatever you want to carry in a little box in your pocket. You know.
Can we see what's inside yours? Do you have any white dust in it?
No, not a bit. Not a bit. Not a bit. These are all lacquer. You know, this is water locks, but this is lacquer. I've gone to Angelo's. You know, I just spray some lacquer on it right on the lathe and buff it right there on the lathe, and then I might even put wax. So that's what I've been doing. So I'm back learning how to make these, and I've been taking some pictures and making some drawings, and sometime I think March I'm going to give you full detail in a club meeting. So that's me. But the reason I'm doing this to show you the box is A, this is what I'm up to, and B, I'm promoting my own demo next spring. What's this, Ben? What is this?
I don't know. That's why I brought it along.
Oh, tell us all about it. And somebody go to the camera so we can get it in.
Somebody gave it to me. They bought it at I think they paid $5 for it at a garage sale. And it's filled with magnets. And I just brought it along to see if anybody, I didn't make it. I was really curious to see how they did make it. If anybody else seen it, ever saw something like that.
I have not, and I've been heavy into magnets and applications for magnets and woodworking for some time. I've imagined making something like that. Never seen it done, and wouldn't have done it that way either.
That's a derivative of a magnetic gear.
Yeah.
The magnets, probably in each one of those colors, the magnet is the opposite pole. So when you spin it, you spin one, the other one will pick up on it.
Well,
yeah, but what kind of magnets would it be?
Just the rare earth ones.
Just a flat magnet?
Yeah, but how are they oriented?
They're oriented. You can see what's touching each other. The dark wood.
The dark wood.
The dark wood.
No.
In between. Okay, so the dark wood is pulling and the white wood is pushing.
Okay.
So do you think we could make one of these without having to saw that one apart?
Sure. They're not that hard to make. It's kind of a neat concept because you can stall one part and the other part, it's not like stalling something with a belt drive. You can make them pretty strong. There's also, by spacing the magnet, you can do multiples of 2, I think.
Don't you have to glue the magnets on the inside so that they're reverse pole? You know, one goes north and the next one is, so the polarity reverses every other magnet?
Yes. Okay. That's probably why he's got the black and white woods. One's probably a plus, one's probably a minus, but it's a. I could make one someday.
Have you made things like this, Duxbury?
Yeah.
Do you have any?
What are you doing?
No. I have a square gear. You want to see my square gear?
Got a near?
I have square gears.
But what you're saying, though, what you're saying is that the magnets that John uses for his snuff box could do this as well. The super magnets that you get at
they can, but by making them in a drum, by using round magnets, you have the polarity of just the end of that magnet.
Okay.
By making a drum, you could put a bar magnet in here and get way more attraction between them, okay?
Yeah, there are bar magnets you can get now, and the rare earth magnets that are so strong you can slide them apart with tools, but with your hands you can't do it. They're so, but they have to be touching to do that. The magnet sees the wood the same as it sees air. It doesn't care whether it's wood or air, but it does care about distance. And it's, you know, this, if you remember your physics, square the distance. Further away you get from moving apart, the more rapidly the force diminishes.
Well, yeah, and that's the same thing that makes a motor run. You know, the armature against the field there's a distance there, but in a more field surface to the armature surface, the more attraction you get. So you could make that thing. Also, you can put in a bar magnet that's a 1 inch square and 2 inches long.
So that's almost perpetual motion.
No, 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 no.
Oh, you can't get to that.
This is just a regular gear. But if each one of those had a magnet in the end of it, and this was a positive and this was a negative, this one would be pushing and this one would be pulling. So you're in the middle like there. When you rotate this, then this one is pulling to this one and this one's pushing to this one.
So does the polarity have to alternate from two?
Yes, yes. And that's why you can get, this is like 2 to 1. That's why she just brought this in. This is like 2 to 1 here. Why didn't that thing pick up?
I'm suspecting the polarity doesn't want to alternate, that it wants to be all the same on one disc and all the same on the other.
No, no, no. No.
Is there anything in the little gear? Is there magnets in the little gear?
No, no, that's just to show what it does.
Oh, okay.
And this
you know that square gears don't work, don't you?
Yeah, we on that note, kids, we're right up on the hour. So if anybody's dying to say something, now's your moment. Thank you, Dr. Judy, for the mask reminder. You do know that I think everybody here is vaxxed and boosted.
John, can you hold that up? Jim, can you hold that up?
John, it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated. There are a lot of breakthrough infections, and the vaccination keeps you, for the most part, from dying from COVID, but it does not keep you from getting long COVID.
Okay.
Which scares me more than actually dying from COVID.
Thank you. I appreciate the reminder. What have we got?
Jim,
another question there. Jim, what's your question?
Yeah, can Duxbury hold up that square gear again? I want to see that. That's unbelievable. Pull it up so we can see it. Oh.
Is he spotlighted still? I just removed it.
Move your fingers.
Just a second. There he is.
Here I am.
Ah, cool.
This is not.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. It's fake.
This has a use too. In this position, the radius from here to here is short. The radius from here to here is long. So there's more power in this gear, and this gear is going fast. In this position, this becomes the longer radius. This becomes the shorter radius. So in an assembly line, this would make this gear go faster in this position and go slower in this position, but it would have more power in this position. So if you had something that was sticky 4 times in a rotation, you could make a square gear like this. Like I said, this is done by eye, but you could make a square gear and get a slightly more power out of this and more speed between whatever you're doing, between operations.
But they have to be the same size, right? They can't be different sizes, the gears.
Well, now you're getting tough, but they can, yes.
Oh, okay. I thought
they also
don't have
to
show
us what you're going to have to do.
No, that's okay.
Well, kids, you've blown away another perfectly good hour. I've enjoyed myself today. I hope you all have. I hope we didn't miss anybody who was dying to show us something. And if you did, bring it in 2 weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Next week's Thanksgiving. Enjoy your turkey, everybody, and your family, or whatever else you're doing.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving. Take care.
Have a good Thanksgiving. Thank God for wood.